What do you do with an old computer? If you ask that question online, everyone's gonna say the same thing. Turn it into a network storage and/or a media server. That's just kind of the default advice. But how old can you go? I've got 3 different computers here, each one older than the last, and I want to find out just how useful they can each be at being a network storage. And this one, it's only got 256 megabytes of RAM. This is from 1999, 2002, 2006. Let's see what we can do with them. There's 2 reasons I chose this CPU as my starting point. Number 1, you may remember the free computer NAS video. I've already made a network storage with that computer from 2009, so this needed to be older than that. And the second more important reason, this is the oldest CPU I have that still uses the 64-bit architecture. Anything I have older than this is gonna be 32-bit, which is almost universally unsupported at this point. So this CPU is from 2006. It's only 3 years older than the free computer, and that thing worked totally fine, so this should be fine too, right? Well, this is multiple times slower. That Core2 quad in the free computer managed an impressive 268 points in Cinebench R15. We've only managed 81 on this system, 3.3 times less performance. So yeah, this CPU is really bad. It struggles with Windows 10. Let's install TrueNAS and see if it is an effective network attached storage, and see if it meets our criteria. I'll explain that later. TrueNAS, and part 1 of the criteria, run a modern NAS operating system. That's gonna get pretty hard when we go 32-bit, but for this thing, no issues at all. I'm in the web interface here, and right at the top right there, you can see our CPU is the Core2 Duo 4300 at 1.8 gigahertz. That is this computer. It runs the OS totally fine. The 4 gigabytes of RAM down here is definitely less than is recommended for TrueNAS, but it doesn't stop it from working at all. Now the rest of the criteria that all of the older computers are going to have to live up to. This network card should be able to work in all 3 of the different computers I have. That's why I picked a PCI card on a platform that already has gigabit Ethernet. I want to use the same interface. This card is supposed to be gigabit, but from my testing, it only manages about 700 megabits per second. So criteria number 2 is transfer files at 700 megabits per second. Let's see if we can do that. First, I'll map my network share in Windows. There, I have access to it. I've just copied some random media files on here. This is a 20 gigabyte video file. I'll just copy that to my downloads. And there we go. I've started the file transfer 80 megabytes per second. And if we look on our interface here, that is coming into the server at 700 what? The TrueNAS web interface is wrong here. It says 700 megabytes per second. That's not possible with this setup. That is supposed to be megabits per second. I don't know why it's reading that wrong. I realize we're using 60% of the CPU just to copy files to this thing. That is not gonna hold up on the older computers. Not even slightly, I don't think. Anyways, let's move on to criteria number 3, media playback through a media server. Let's see if we can set up Jellyfin on this thing. There's Jellyfin, and here is its web interface. And this is a 4K H.264 file. Let's see if I can play this off the server. Yeah, that was fast. That works perfectly. Okay, Jellyfin works. Is that it? Is that all the criteria I need? I feel like I should also have one that's just, does it work with SATA storage? Because that's what everyone uses for bulk storage. Other than that though, I can't think of anything I'd need a network storage to do that this thing is not currently accomplishing. Let's go older. Representing 2002, I have this Pentium 4 desktop. It has 1 singular CPU core running at 2.6 gigahertz. It does have hyperthreading, which means that singular core is going to show up as 2 here. And I'm running Linux Mint Debian Edition 6. It doesn't exactly run amazingly. If I drag this window around, you'll see my CPU usage. It's sitting, 20%. Let's just move this window. Boom, 87, 97. Yeah, this thing kind of struggles with the Cinnamon desktop environment, just a little bit. But hey, this is a server. We can just turn off the user interface. We'll try that later. Important things right now, let's load up a NeoFetch. And there it is, Linux Mint Debian Edition 6. This is a currently actively supported operating system with security updates. Albeit, it is a version old, number 7 is out by now, but this is the last one that supports 32-bit. I can't get over that dragging any window maxes out the CPU. Yeah, it's a good thing this is being used as a server. The Cinnamon process, that's the desktop environment, the user interface here, it's pulling all of the CPU power. I was also going to mention the ISO file for Linux Mint Debian Edition 6 is terribly out of date. After I installed this, I had to go through several hours of updating on this terribly slow CPU in order for anything to actually work and download new packages and stuff. And I needed to do that to get Samba working. That's the file sharing for Windows. This actually works way better than I thought it was going to. This folder is shared from this copy of Linux Mint on this terribly old computer, and it works in Windows 10 totally fine with modern SMB3 protocol. Here's my files. These are coming from that computer. Time for our file transfer speed test. We'll copy this to our desktop. Why not? There, 50 megabytes per second. Oh no, I didn't touch this computer at all. All I did was start copying this file from this Windows computer, and the CPU usage is just permanently pinned at 99% just to copy a file without even interacting with that computer. That CPU is struggling. So 50 megabytes per second, I kind of wonder if I disable the desktop environment here, will that increase? I mean, it does seem like we're CPU limited, and this graphical user interface is a little advanced for that thing. In theory, after running this command that I just ran, I should be able to reboot this computer without all of the heavy Cinnamon desktop environment. Let's see if that works. And yeah, this time, instead of the whole desktop and user interface, we just have this little command prompt. Let's see if the file transfer is any faster. Shrek 2001 copy to desktop. Yes. Oh, that is actually faster. 65 megabytes per second. We gained like 15 there. HTOP. We're still maxing out the CPU here. You can see this SMB process, that's the file sharing protocol, that is using the most CPU power, and our CPU is pretty well fully loaded. We're not quite saturating the full gigabit network interface here, but it's doing better than I thought it would. The previous server, the Core2 Duo, showed pretty high CPU usage, transferring at 700 megabits per second. This thing is still managing 500 megabits per second, which is a bit worse, but it's a lot older computer. I guess technically we can't say that it managed the 700 megabits per second, so that is a fail there, but media server, we'll try that. Start Plex media server.service. Jellyfin does not have a 32-bit version, at least not that I know of, but Plex has been around forever, so it does. And what surprised me here is it's not even out of date. They actively support their 32-bit server software to this day. This is fully updated on a Pentium 4. That's pretty cool. Anyways, let's access the web interface. And there it is, fully up-to-date version of Plex Media Server running on a Pentium 4 from 2002. And it works totally fine. This is another 4K H.264 video. I click play, there it is. And of course, we are doing so off of a regular SATA SSD. I accidentally just unplugged that while the computer was on. Oh, it's probably mad about that. Oh no. Yeah, exception failed command write. Let's just turn that off. I think we're done with this. Well, before I broke everything, a 23-year-old computer still runs a modern, up-to-date operating system, which probably won't last that much longer, but it works for now. And it does a modern file share, SMB3, 500 megabits per second, and up-to-date Plex Media Server, all on a Pentium 4 system that's 23 years old. I'm pretty impressed with that. Let's go older. This classic beige desktop is running an Intel Pentium 3, a CPU from 1999, 450 megahertz on one singular core, and this time, no hyperthreading. We also only have a quarter of a gigabyte of RAM. Needless to say, Linux Mint Debian Edition 6 is not running on this thing, and especially not stuff like Plex Media Server. That RAM is really limiting. There's a good chance I could find a modern 32-bit headless Linux distro that would probably run on here. It's not really gonna get us that much farther though, so I'm going to stick with this, Windows XP. I had to burn an actual physical CD to install Windows XP. Please open. Yeah, there we go. Advantages of Windows XP in 2025. It is an operating system that functions on this hardware. And we have 3D pinball, which I'm definitely about to lose. Yep, that was fast. We are officially not running modern supported software anymore, and we're definitely not doing any Plex media server on here, but we can still do Samba file sharing. Let's see how that goes. Sharing properties. Share this folder on the network and allow users to change my files. That process right there makes me feel like modern Linux Mint. Way too complicated for sharing files. I had to type stuff into a configuration file through nano on the command prompt. That was way too complicated. I didn't even record any of that because it took so long. Anyways, I'm not here to complain about Linux. Let's see how fast this file share is. This is Windows XP, so we do need to come into the Windows features thing and enable SMB1 support, which is probably definitely some kind of security issue. We're gonna ignore that. You may notice we only have 20 gigabytes of available storage. Yes, that is the entire capacity of the hard drive in here. There's two of them actually. One of them's 8 gigs, one of them's 20 gigs. 3.5-inch hard drive has 8 gigs of storage. Copy to desktop. There we go. 11, 12, 13, almost 14 megabytes per second. Oh, 14. It's going back down. 13.2. That seems pretty stable. Starting a file transfer on a completely separate computer has made this entire desktop environment completely useless. Our CPU usage, not that I can point it out, the mouse doesn't do anything. Oh no. Back when this window still had information in it, the CPU usage was just stuck at 97%. So this thing is maxed out. 2 more minutes for 1.5 gigabytes. Yeah, I'm just gonna cancel that. Can we play this 4K video file directly off the server? It did take a while to load, but that file is playing off of the server. I didn't actually think that was gonna work. That's pretty cool. Okay, what else can we do with this thing? I mean, aside from Windows XP free cell solitaire, probably not very much. 15 megabytes per second, or even slightly less, is not very good for network attached storage. I'm sure that those IDE hard drives are not doing it any favors. There's not a single SATA port in this computer. Let's benchmark the drive and see how fast that is. Crystal Disk Mark 8 still runs on Windows XP, 32-bit. 18 megabytes per second. Now I'm actually kind of impressed that it still managed to do 15 over the network to this computer. Those IDE hard drives are pretty bad. Realistically, a system like this is not going to be worth your time setting up as a network storage. You could make an argument that the Pentium 4 system from 2002, it could be useful. It also is really annoying that it's only 32-bit, and you should probably just avoid that platform. It did work though, I have to give it credit for that, and it managed decent speeds on a modern, up-to-date operating system. That's pretty good. If you can pull something together that's dual-core 64-bit like that 2006 Core2 Duo, you're in pretty good shape. That thing will have no issues running modern, whatever NAS operating system you want, and it's going to saturate a gigabit network connection, and it's going to run media servers. That is a pretty solid NAS. And of course, going newer than that is only going to bring you benefits. There's a reason that the default advice for an old computer is to use it as a network attached storage. They're good at it, they don't need to be powerful, and it's a super useful thing to have. If you're going to buy a computer as a network attached storage, any old like Dell Optiplex is going to be pretty good. This was manufactured in 2015, almost 10 years newer than that Core2 Duo system. And this only cost me $50 on Marketplace. I think these old computers did pretty good for their age. I'm impressed that we got this far with any of them. If you thought this video was interesting, get subscribed for next week's video. Thank you for watching. See you next time.